Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the world of ethical hacking. We're going to explore the super precise, really methodical process these digital detectives use to find security flaws before the bad guys do.
You know, this quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? Ethical hacking, or what the pros call penetration testing, is all about seeing your own digital fortress through the eyes of someone trying to break in. It's a proactive hunt for weaknesses, so you can patch them up before they get exploited for real.
So to really wrap your head around this, just think about Star Wars. Seriously, you've got the Jedi, those are your white hats. They have access to this incredible power, right? But they use it to protect and serve. And then on the other side, you've got the Sith, your black hats. They use the exact same power, but for personal gain, for chaos. Same skills, totally different intentions.
So, how does an ethical hack actually happen? Yeah, it's not at all like what you see in the movies with all that frantic keyboard mashing. It's a very structured, 5-phase methodology, and we're going to walk through every single step of this journey together. All right, let's get into it. Before an ethical hacker even thinks about looking at a target, they need a safe place to work, a place to practice and hone their skills. This is their digital lab, their workbench.
And look, this part is absolutely critical. A hacking lab is an isolated or sandboxed environment. Think of it like a digital firing range, totally cut off from the rest of the world. This self-contained setup means you can test out some seriously powerful tools and techniques without any risk of, your experiments accidentally spilling out onto the live internet. That would be very, very bad and illegal.
So, your typical lab is made up of two main parts. First, you've got the attacker's machine. This is often running something called Kali Linux, which is a specialized operating system just packed with hundreds of pre-installed hacking tools. It's like the ultimate hacker multi-tool. And on the other side, you have your targets, intentionally vulnerable victim machines that are just designed for practice.
Okay, so once the lab is all set up for practice, a real test kicks off with phase 1, reconnaissance. This is the intelligence gathering phase. It's all about collecting as much information as you possibly can about your target before you ever directly touch their systems.
I love this slide because it shows the whole process perfectly. It's like an upside-down pyramid or a funnel. You start really broad at the top with reconnaissance, casting this huge, wide net for any little piece of public information you can find. Then, with each step, you get narrower, more focused, more precise, until you get all the way down to the very tip of that triangle. A single, successful attack.
So one of the go-to tools for this is called the harvester. You can think of it like a digital detective that quietly scours public sources, search engines, social media, you name it, for information. And the key here is that it does this passively. It never directly pokes the target's systems, which means all of its activity is completely invisible to them.
And check this out. This is the kind of gold it can dig up. Finding employee email addresses, for instance, is a massive win. Why? Well, think about it. Most companies use the same format for emails as they do for their internal network usernames. So an email like j.smith@company.com is a huge clue that there's probably a network username out there called jsmith. It's a vital first piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so we've been quiet observers up until now. That's about to change. Now we move from that passive observation to active probing. This is the scanning phase. All that intel we gathered in reconnaissance is now going to tell us where to start directly testing the target's defenses, looking for a way in.
Honestly, the best way to think about this is to imagine a computer on a network is a house. And that house has literally thousands of potential entry points, doors and windows, which in the digital world we call ports. A port scanner's job is basically to walk down the street and methodically jiggle the handle of every single door and window on that house to see which ones are unlocked.
Now, to do this without making a lot of noise, scanners can get a little sneaky. A normal, polite connection is like a 3-step conversation. But a stealth scan, that's basically the digital equivalent of playing ding-dong ditch. You knock on the door, and the second someone answers, you run away. You never complete that third step, so the connection isn't properly logged, making the whole scan much, much harder to detect.
And for this job, there is one tool that is an absolute legend, totally indispensable, Nmap. It stands for Network Mapper. It's the digital map maker for any penetration tester, letting them draw out a super detailed map of the target's network, all the devices on it, and its defenses.
But here's what's so powerful about Nmap. It doesn't just tell you a door is unlocked. It actually peeks through the keyhole and tells you exactly what kind of lock is on that door. It identifies the specific service, and, this is the most important part, the exact version number of the software running.
Knowing you're up against an old, unpatched version of some program, well, that's the golden ticket to the next phase. All right, and that brings us to the part everyone's been waiting for, the main event, exploitation. This is what most people picture when they think of hacking. It's the process of using one of those specific weaknesses you found during scanning to actually breach the system and get inside.
So every attack here has two parts. First, you've got the exploit. That's the specially crafted piece of code that targets a very specific vulnerability. It's like a key that's been perfectly cut for one specific lock. And second, you've got the payload. That's what you want to do once you've picked the lock. It's the code that runs after the exploit works, and it's what gives you control.
And when it comes to exploits, the most famous tool, hands down, is the Metasploit framework. You can just think of it like a hacker's master skeleton key. It's this enormous searchable library of prepackaged exploits and payloads that makes the whole complex process of exploitation way more accessible. And here is where everything we've done comes together. Your Nmap scan found a weak spot. You pop over to Metasploit, you search for an exploit that matches that exact weakness, you pair it with a payload, you point it at the target, and you launch. If it works, you get remote access. You've basically got a command prompt on their computer that you can control from anywhere in the world.
But wait, getting in? That's just the beginning. It's rarely the end goal. That brings us to the final, and you could argue the most critical phase, post-exploitation. This is all about what an attacker can do after they've breached the perimeter. It's about setting up shop, establishing control, and using that first computer as a launchpad to go deeper into the network.
This is where we answer the big, so what question for any company. What's the actual damage an attacker could do once they're inside? Can they steal our secret files? Can they shut down our servers? Can they hop from one computer to the next and eventually take over the whole network? This is where the true business risk is really measured.
And a payload like MeterPredator is just, wow. The amount of control you get is kind of mind-blowing. For example, you could dump all the system's password files, which are scrambled or hashed, so you can try to crack them later. Or you could start a keylogger that secretly records every single thing the user types. From emails to credit card numbers, it's incredibly powerful stuff.
So as you can see, this whole thing is a million miles away from the Hollywood version of hacking, right? There's no frantic genius-level typing against a ticking clock. It's a patient, structured, and repeatable scientific process of discovery, of narrowing your focus, and then proving that a weakness is real. And this really leaves us with one final huge question. We've just walked through this incredibly methodical process for taking a system apart, piece by piece. So that makes you wonder about the other side of the coin. How can we use that same methodical thinking to build stronger, more resilient systems in the first place? Because ultimately, understanding how things break is the very first step to learning how to make them unbreakable.